I've already reviewed the first book in the series, but considering the series seems to have been cancelled, I wanted to do my part to spread the word about it. Also, it just hit me so hard in the feels that I needed to get this off my chest anyway. So, yeah, you can find a link to my Volume 1 review in the description, but you won't need to have seen it to understand this one. I consider this a light or anti-isekai because while the protagonist is an isekai Japanese high schooler, like what feels like almost every light novel protagonist these days, that isn't the point. He isn't overpowered or drowning a woman, he's not on a quest to save the world, he's not even special. He's just the Watson character that others explain this fantasy world to. And to be honest, that makes him easily the most interesting isekai protagonist I've ever read. He was brought into the world as the latest in a long line of Otherworlders, but he was brought to a planet that's mostly dead, with only a few survivors left here and there. In the first novel, he even contemplates suicide after months of wandering the wastes all alone before he finds Nito, a half-elf artist he starts travelling with. Volume 1 was a road trip where the pair met a number of people whose stories came together in the end. This time, most of the story takes place in a single village that the pair stop in for a while as they look for a map. I won't spoil either plot, of course, but these books are a great representation of how everyone has their own lives to live, rich with experiences and regrets. Everyone is wonderful and unique, and I appreciated how they all spoke plainly instead of in circles, and they are all absolutely protagonists of their own stories. None of them feel like side characters, which really hit me hard, even more so here than in Volume 1. There's also a wonderfully written trans character here. Unfortunately, she's introduced much like trans women are in a lot of Japanese media, i.e. as confusing to the viewer and overly flirtatious, but once she's introduced, she's simply amazing to see and talk to, and her story is just so painful. She's treated respectfully too, other than the introduction, with her never being dead named or misgendered even when talking about her childhood. Considering how mistreated transgender people are, especially recently in the US and UK, this particular arc was wonderfully cathartic and came out at the perfect time. I'm deeply grateful for that coincidence. I'm trying really hard not to gush. Trust me, all of what came before is me doing my absolute best to stay quiet while fidgeting like a child on a sugar rush. So just trust me when I say that this series has already become one of my most beloved ever. The characters are wonderful and they all make me tear up, both out of sorrow and also happiness whenever they receive a glimmer of hope. Every single dynamic out of the myriad two-person combinations was unique and fun, yet completely believable at the same time, and just like Keisuke, the protagonist, and Nito, I felt terrible at the thought of leaving them behind. And Nito herself is just so darn precious too. If you know about Nino from Fire Emblem or Sophia from Persona 5, you'll know what I'm getting at. She's a young child who's been through a lot of suffering, and yet she's still so earnest in wanting to help people, and at one point even brings people to tears through just how pure she is. So it's not just me who feels that way about her. I greatly appreciate the lack of romance between her and Keisuke too, since novels and manga have fallen prey to those kinds of relationships in the past. While she's implied to have a small crush on him, their dynamic is very much that of siblings sticking together through thick and thin, and that alone is enough to make me feel warm and fuzzy. So just imagine how their bond felt when compounded with everything else. So yeah, read these books. Even if you don't like isekais, read these books. Your heart may hate you for it at first, but you can just tell it that it'll all be worthwhile by the end, and it'll agree once you're done. And also, read these books to show that they're worth writing. As I said earlier, the series seems to have been cancelled, or is at the very least in limbo, since the second volume was written in 2020, and the author says he needs permission to write more. Please show publishers that there's a market for isekais that aren't power fantasies, that are instead rich, character-driven stories that really make you feel. Thank you very much for making it to the end of this video. I hope you liked it. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and if there are any other light novels you'd recommend for people who like this one, and also subscribe for more reviews like this one too. Thank you all again, and as always, have a great day.